For the last of this unit, wow, we got to the end of this unit already. We're gonna start by proving or disproving. Remember, proving or disproving, we had to find some information, and then based on the information, we're gonna be able to answer a question. By proving or disproving, are these figures parallelograms or rectangles? Okay, so let's take a look. First of one, questions 31 and 32. Prove or disprove that the quadrilateral QRST, you guys see the vertices, is a parallelogram by finding the slope of opposite sides. We're going to write undefined if the slope is undefined. When do we get an undefined slope? Is when we divide by zero. So for example, for the slope, remember I have a fraction, I have two numbers. When the number at the bottom is a zero, the number on the top is anything else. Let's just say, for example, 3 over 0, right? If you grab your calculator and you type in 3 divided by 0, depending on the calculator you use, your answer is going to be either undefined. Undefined basically means you can't get it. It might even tell you the rule. It is undefined because we cannot divide by 0. So that's going to be undefined. Now, what if I have a 0 on the top? What if I have like a 0 over 3? Well, if I type in 0 divided by 3, my answer is 0. The 0 on the top is not a problem. The 0 at the bottom, that's undefined. So that might happen. That might happen. So let's take a look. First of all, it says let's find the slope of the slope of QR. You see this right here. The first thing is find the slope of QR. So I'm using the points Q and R. As a reminder of the slope, I'm going to write this up here. The formula for the slope is the second y minus the first y all over the second x minus the first x. So we should remember this formula. I wrote it up there. I'm going to not see it here, but you guys know it. So the second y minus the first y. So I'm going to say my point R is the second point. So let me subtract the y's. 12 minus 3. At the bottom, I have -2 minus a -6. I know 12 minus 3 is 9. Here, two negative signs become a plus sign. -2 plus 6 is 4. I cannot simplify my fraction, so it's 9 over 4. Just as a reminder, how are we going to type this? 9 over 4. Okay. Now let's find the slope of the points TS. I'm going to switch it to blue so it doesn't get confused. So TS, I'm looking at the coordinates of T and S. I'm going to say S is my second point, okay? So I'm going to start on both cases from S. So first subtract the y's. 12 minus 3. At the bottom, subtract the x's. 3 minus a -1. I know 12 minus 3 is 9. Here, two negative signs become a plus sign. 3 plus 1 is 4. Oh, cool. I already have these two the same slope. One cool thing is that opposite sides on a parallelogram, the slopes are the same. Okay? Hopefully that happens on this last 2 points as well. Definitely that will be not the same slope, 9 over 4, all of them, because then my lines will never intersect. Now they have to have at least a different slope. So the slope of the point QT. So I'm looking at the coordinates of Q and T. And I'm gonna say T is my second point. So my values are coming from T, okay? So on the top, the subtract the y's, right? 3 minus 3. At the bottom, -1 minus a -6. Notice my values started from the values from T. Okay, 3 minus 3 is 0. Here, This 2 make a plus sign. -1 plus 6 is 5. And 0 divided by 5 is 0. We talked about this a few minutes ago. Problem would be if the 0 was at the bottom, but being on top, not a big deal. You guys might be like, how does the slope 0 look like on a graph? It's a flat line like this. How does undefined look like? It's a vertical line. This will be undefined. So 0 or undefined, they can be graphed. They have a slope. They can be graphed. Even undefined, they can be graphed. All right, looking at the last one, the slope of the point of the segment RS. So I'm using R and S. I'm gonna start using the values from S, okay? S is my second point. So first subtract the Y's, 12 minus 12. Subtract the X's, starting from the values of S, 3 minus a -2. So 12 minus 12 is 0. Here's a plus. 3 plus 2 is 5. 0 divided by 5 is 0. So I get the slopes. I notice the first two have the same slope, so those are parallel. The last two have the same slope. Those are parallel. A parallelogram is when you have two pairs of parallel lines. So it means two lines are parallel, another two are parallel, not all four. So is QRST a parallelogram? Yes, because it has two pairs. Remember, pair means two. So two pairs of parallel lines. That's not bad. Let's take a look at number 32. The slope of EF. So I'm using the points E and F. I'm going to subtract the Y starting from F, right? I'm going to use the F as my second point. So 5 minus a -3. And then -13 minus a -14. I know these two negative signs become a plus sign. I know 5 plus 3 is 8. These two become a plus sign. -13 plus 14 is 1. If there's a negative sign, bring it to the front. There's no negative sign. Simplify your fraction if you can. 8 over 1. Well, when it is over 1, it's not a fraction anymore, right? My slope is 8. Let me switch to blue so we don't get confused. Now I'm going to be looking at HG. So here's H, here's G. I'm going to start with my values of H. Just pick a value, a point. That's going to be your second point. It doesn't matter which one. So the numbers I'm going to write the first number. So I'm starting from the values of H, right? So subtract the Y's. Starting from the Y from H. So -1 minus 6. Subtract the X's. -3 minus a -4. So on the top, -1, -6, that's a -7. Now here, -3, +4, that's 1. My slope here is not a fraction anymore. It's a -7. Okay. Let me clear this out. Let me switch back to red. Now finding the slope of EH. So I'm using the values E and H. I'm going to use H as my second point. So the first number that I write, it coming from the point H. So let's subtract the Y's. -1 minus a -3. At the bottom, let me subtract the X's. -3 minus a -14. Now I know here on top that becomes a plus. -1 plus 3 is 2. I know this becomes a plus sign. -3 plus 14 is 11. My slope is 2 over 11. If there was a negative sign, because sometimes it might happen, if there's a negative sign, bring it to the front. Okay. And lastly, let me switch back to blue so we don't get confused. I'm going to find the slope of the point of the segment FG. So I'm using the values of F and G. I'm going to use G as my second point. So I'm going to write the number from G first. So let me subtract the Y's. So 6 minus 5. At the bottom, let me subtract the x's. -4 minus a -13. I know 6 minus 5 is 1. Here, these two negative signs become a plus sign. -4 plus 13 is 9. If there's a negative sign, obviously bring it to the front. 1 over 9 cannot simplify it. Just as a reminder, the way you type a fraction is 1 \9. So 1 over 9. Okay. And lastly is EFGH a parallelogram. Remember, in order for them to be parallelogram, there's two pairs that are parallel. So there will be two lines that are parallel and another two lines that are parallel. Now here, man, the slopes are all over the place. None of these lines are parallel. So no, this is not a parallelogram. Those lines are, the slopes are all over the place. Now let's take a look at 33 and 34. Prove or disprove the parallelogram with vertices. So it gives me the vertices of a parallelogram. So the vertices are W, X, Y, and Z. It gives me the coordinates. It's a rectangle by finding the length of the diagonals. Okay, we talked about this before. The diagonals, for this case, I am going to use the length. I'm going to use how long are the diagonals. It says finding the length. Now, parallelograms, does any parallelogram cut the diagonals in half? However, on a rectangle, the length of the diagonals is the same. The diagonals are equal length. So let's take a look at here. WY. One of my diagonals is WY. We use this formula already as a reminder of the distance formula. I'm going to subtract the y's, so y2 minus y1 all squared. I'm going to subtract the x's, so x2 minus x1 all squared, and inside a square root. Because I squared in the distance formula, I can flip the order of the parentheses, and inside the parentheses, I can flip the order of the y's. So here on WY, first of all, let me subtract the y's. I do want to avoid negatives. So I'm going to start with the bigger number. Remember, flipping the order only works on distance, not slope. So let me subtract the y's. 23 minus 1, and my answer is going to be all squared. Plus, let me subtract the x's. 13 minus 9 all squared, and this is going to be inside a square root. I know 23 minus 1 is 22. So 22 squared plus, I know 13 minus 9 is 4. So I'm really looking at the square root of 22 squared plus 4 squared. Type it in on your calculator. I'm going to round it to one decimal place, and it gives me 22.4. So the length of the diagonal WY is 22.4. Now, let me find the length of the diagonal XZ. So I'm going to be using the coordinates of X and Z. If the length is 22.4, well, both diagonals are equal, it is a rectangle. If the length is not 22.4, then they're not rectangles. So let's see. First, I have to subtract the y's. So 17 minus 7 all squared. Then I have to subtract the x's. 21 minus 1 all squared. And this is inside a square root. I know 17 minus 7 is 10 squared. 21 minus 1, that's 20 squared. I don't get the same numbers as the previous one, right? But my answer here could still be the same. I type it in on my calculator, the square root of 10 squared plus 20 squared, and it tells me 22.4. My diagonals are equal. Therefore, WXYZ is a rectangle. So here, is WXYZ a rectangle? Yes. Take a look at number 34 here. I'm gonna keep this at red. I'm looking at the distance EG. So I'm looking at E and G. I'm using the coordinates E and G. So first I had to subtract the y's, right? So 10 minus 4 all squared. Let me subtract the x's. 25 minus 15 all squared, and this is inside a square root. I know 10 minus 4 is 6, so I'm looking at 6 squared. I know 25 minus 15 is 10, so 10 squared. I'm looking at the square root of 6 squared plus 10 squared. Type it in on your calculator. Round your answer to one decimal place, 11.7. Now let me switch it to blue so we don't get confused on the work. FH. So I'm looking at the coordinates of F and H. First of all, I have to subtract the y's. I want to avoid negatives, so I'm going to go 10 minus a negative 4, all squared, plus. Let me subtract the x's, 22 minus 18, all squared, and this is inside a square root. Now, first parentheses, those two negative signs become a plus sign. So I have 14 squared plus, I know 22 minus 18 is 4, so 4 squared. So I have the square root of 14 squared plus 4 squared. Type it on my calculator, and it gives me about 14.6. Oh, the length are not the same. They're different length. So is EFGH a rectangle? No. There it is, our work from yesterday's work as well. You guys can combine them.